Tracy Roberts said she'd been attacked in her home by her friend's son, and she had killed him.
I was defending my family because the worst fear for me was that I would lose one of my kids or someone would die. And now she's lost her son. And that's all I could keep thinking about.
But who had caused Dustin Weedy to be in that house in the first place? The lead investigator called Tracy to fill her in on his progress.
We're looking at your ex-husband. We're looking at his attorney. And those are all, we're looking at everything.
Tracy had told the cops about that nasty custody battle she was waging with her ex-husband, the Virginia doctor. She said her ex certainly had a plausible motive to want her dead, but investigators couldn't find any hard evidence linking him to Dustin Weedy. No phone records, no money trail. It was a dead end. As the weeks passed, another name began to crop up around town.
A lot of people wondered. A lot of speculation. Dean menus today.
Speculation that Robin Paget heard dished up over coffee and eggs at her diner a few blocks from the Roberts home. The name that kept coming up was Michael Roberts, Tracy's second husband.
I don't think people trusted Michael. He came off as this, I'm better than you, I'm smarter than you. He was too sure of himself, maybe.
Michael had always said that he was out of state on a business trip that night. But was he? Could he prove it?
Obviously, the husband is always a suspect in most cases involving an attempt on a wife's life.
Sac County Sheriff Ken McClure, who took over the case in 2003, said investigators had been intrigued by Michael Roberts from the get-go. Who was this Australian businessman who'd moved from Chicago to tiny Early, Iowa?
What is the draw? Law enforcement officers with careers that have gone on for a while have seen, the criminal element move out of the cities and into the rural areas. So I think you just got to step back and look at that and say, why are they here?
Tracy was in conflict. The suspect she wanted investigators to get serious about was her ex, that doctor in Virginia. But they seemed just as interested, if not more interested, in her current husband, Michael Roberts. Good friend Mary Higgins told Tracy directly what so many in town were starting to believe about her spouse.
She came right out and told me she thought it was Michael.
Had set up Dustin and this other guy.
Yeah,
And the goal was to do what?
to kill me.
Mary Higgins says the Roberts' perfect marriage was all an act.
You know the difference between somebody who's in love and mad at them, but still are in love. And that was gone there. It was just that feeling of, this isn't good, this is cold, this is bad.
And her opinion wasn't just based on a feeling. Mary, who often picked Bert up at school, had heard him tell horrible stories about what was going on at home.
If Bert didn't move fast enough, there was always some sort of a harsh punishment. Many times Bert would come to school without a coat, and it would be below zero because Bert didn't move fast enough in the morning.
But as the story went, it was an incident in December 2000, a year before the home invasion, that had really exposed Tracy and Michael's marriage for the facade it was. It began with an argument over finances in the Roberts home office. Dustin's mother, Mona, watched it unfold.
Tracy comes storming in through the back door, and she's just rampaging and yelling and screaming. And Michael looked at me and goes, I'm going to have to excuse you and ask you to leave.
And then it went nuts. According to this police report, Tracy said Michael had knocked her down and jumped on her. He'd also pulled her hair.
That's when he put my mom's head through drywall.
Through the sheetrock, huh?
Her head went through the drywall.
Michael Roberts was arrested and spent the night in jail. The next day, he pleaded no contest to charges of disturbing the peace. But Bert told police there was more they needed to know. This boy who had accused his biological dad of sexually abusing him now said he had horror stories about his stepfather, too.
Is he hitting you, giving you the back of the hand kind of thing?
Yeah, I mean, it's, he broke my nose at one point for not cleaning up horse crap, with my bare hands.
And along with the beatings, he said, there was constant humiliation.
One of the worst ones was when I was older, just psychologically. I mean, I was like 13 at the time, and he was beating me, and then, I was crying, and since I was crying, I was a little baby, and the little baby needed its bottle, so, it made me drink out of a bottle.
Are you okay with this? He's your boy.
I wasn't happy with it, but I found that when I objected, it made it worse.
Bert says his mother remained blind to something that was becoming clearer and clearer to him. It wasn't his biological dad, Dr. John Pittman, who had plotted his mother's murder. He now believed it was his stepfather.
So you think Michael, your stepfather, was involved in this, orchestrated it, planned it?
Fully involved.
Looking back, Bert thinks Michael gave himself away at the hospital the night of the attack.
Just the way he looked at us, or the way he reacted to seeing us alive was off.
As though he didn't expect to see you alive?
Yeah.
Bert thinks Michael was posing as a loving, concerned husband and pointing fingers at the Chicago dentist and Tracy's ex-husband just to throw the cops off the trail.
He's trying to have everybody look in all these different directions instead of him, you know.
Isn't it counterintuitive, though, that he would stay with your mother, and he does for years? You think he would find a reason to have his pager go off and leave town?
I mean, if you paid people to kill your family and they failed, you don't want to leave because it looks like you did it. I feel like he was waiting for his next opportunity to do it.
And remember, it was Michael Roberts who had begun nurturing Dustin Weedy in the year leading up to the attack. Dustin's relationship with his own dad had been difficult.
There just wasn't a lot of connection between the two of them. And I think for Dustin, that was painful.
Had Michael exploited this void to his advantage, becoming some kind of father figure to the troubled teen, grooming him to kill Tracy? The lead investigators confronted Michael in his home office.
He looked me in the eye and said, "Michael, how much did you pay Dustin to kill your wife?"
Michael denied any involvement in the crime, and police quickly established that his alibi, the out-of-town business trip, was rock solid. There was no way that he'd been in the house that night as the second intruder. But that didn't mean he couldn't have masterminded the attack. Police asked Tracy's husband to take a polygraph. He failed it.
The fact that he failed a polygraph, yeah, I had to think maybe he is involved.
Was Tracy now living with a man who wanted her dead? How much danger was she really in?
Coming up, the other mom in this story has some questions of her own. Questions about the home invasion story Tracy's been telling.
They just plain simple said, her story fits the evidence. And I'm just like going, no, it doesn't.
When Twisted continues.